I'm making this video at the bequest of Sister Macy. She made a good point, brought up a good subject matter, which is the seven heavens. Now, I'm going to do this short video. I may do a longer teaching on this at a later point because it's a lot to digest, an incredible amount to digest, and I'm going to give you some references to go to. Now, the New Testament only mentions the third heaven, and I think it's in Second Chronicles. I can't remember exactly what chapter and verse, but Second Chronicles, if I'm not mistaken, is the only place in the New Testament that the third heaven is mentioned. But in the Old Testament, you can go to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, and read about the first heaven. And in Genesis chapter 1, verse 17, you can read about the second heaven. And in Psalms 78, verse 23, you can read about the third heaven. And in Isaiah 63, verse 15, and also in 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 3, you can learn about the fourth heaven. You get a little bit of information about these heavens. In Deuteronomy 26, verse 15, and also in Psalms 42, verse 9, you can learn about the fifth heaven. And in 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 39, and Deuteronomy 28, verse 12, you can read about the sixth heaven. And in there's the seventh heaven, which is written about in different places. This is where what's considered the realm of the angels and also the realm of the throne of God in the seventh heaven. Now, this is what's known, and again, not many people have access to these things. You might be able to seek out some of this information. This information was removed. Much of the information was removed, and I did a previous video on this. But you can find some of this in what's called the Talmud, Talmuh, Mud. The Talmud was a series of debates that occurred with the Jewish rabbis and religious leaders between the 2nd and 5th century BC. And what they did, again, many people only think that the Catholics removed things from Scripture, but the Jewish religious leaders did too. And what the Talmud was a series of debates that occurred over a few hundred years on what things should be removed from the Bible. And again, some of the stuff that was removed was about the seven heavens. But that is what most people know. And you can read more about this in some of the other Jewish literature that's out there. You can also read about it in the third book of Enoch, but here's the credible part. Not just the third book of Enoch mentions it, but you can also go to the second book of Enoch. And Enoch wrote about the 10 heavens that he saw. So there's actually more, and I will verify this. Many people have seen 7. There's been people that's seen 7, and they've been written about. Enoch himself saw 10 heavens. I personally have seen 11. Now, I don't know if there's more than that. Something tells me there possibly is, because God is infinite. He cannot be measured. The things that he's created, and he's always creating new and more, because that is his infinite ways. So I personally know about 11. And what I can tell you, you can go to this and read some of this information that I've provided as just to begin learning about these things. What I can tell you, I hear many people ask the question about, well, will you worry about your loved ones or miss your loved ones in heaven? I can personally tell you, the overwhelming overwhelming feeling that comes over you when you enter into heaven. There's no worries. There's no troubled hearts. There's no troubled minds. It's incredible. And when I hear people try to describe heaven, I don't even try to, because I don't believe there are really words that could fully uh, explain just how incredible it is. And now I do hear people. This is how I know the difference between ones who have gone to heaven and ones who have not, because they will fumble and stumble over their words in trying, making attempts to describe heaven, because it's undescribable. The feeling you get is undescribable. The awe, the relief of worldly burdens or fleshly burdens, they do not exist. All the things that worry you here on earth, they do not exist. And I try to tell people this when, there are a lot of people that I've met, I've talked to, and I've counseled before as they were dying. And they were so worried, so concerned, so full of fear before they were passed. And I've tried to emphasize and explain all of that passes. All of that passes with the flesh. And the feeling, the awe, the everything that you get when you enter into heaven is undescribable. There's no words that can describe it. No words even come close to describing the experience when you enter into heaven. So check out some of these chapters and verses. Again, these are the 7 heavens that the Old Testament teaches about. You can go to the second and the third book of Enoch, and he writes about 10 heavens that he witnessed. But again, I personally have seen 11, and that's not to say there could be more. It's very possible, very, very possible there could be more. But I know about 11. Enoch wrote about 10, and many others wrote about 7. What I can explain to you, the 11th heaven, the best way I could explain it is it's a complete wholeness. There's really no way to describe it. You have when you enter into the 11th heaven, you have become in complete wholeness with the Lord. And again, there's just no way to visually describe it, to describe how it looks. How it feels is the most incredible part. The feeling, the incredible feeling that comes over you is just unbelievable. So y'all check out this, do your research, and I'll try to get back and do another video on this later, a more in-depth study. God bless.